I'm Joe Lovell. We'll go ahead and get started. I first want to say I appreciate all of you coming, and I am really sorry we are here. You folks know better than anybody around what this is like because you've been through it before. And it just keeps happening and happening. And I'm sorry, and it just got worse this time. So anyway, let me kind of go through how I put this together and why we're here and introduce some people. And so I know a lot of you, I recognize a lot of friends, a lot of acquaintances. I've been up here putting on presentations before with Andy Holloway. And so I know a bunch of you, and I have been doing fire cases. The first one I tried in Roberts County was the 1996, we called it the Payne Ranch Fire. I tried that one for Salem, Abraham. And then, of course, most of you probably lived through the 2006 fires, and I was involved as an attorney representing several people in that fiasco. And then, the sad thing is, I have been representing folks in grass fire cases ever since, one after another. Grass fire cases, and then you know this. We used to talk about that 2006 North Fire as then it really went as the largest wildfire in Texas history, and gosh, would that ever happen again? And it did. So when this started happening, I was watching all of this happen, and at first I thought it was going to be like most of these others, where it was able to be contained mostly out on the grasslands, out on the ranches, which certainly they would suffer their damages. But then I saw Fritch go up in flames, and I saw Canadian go up in flames, and I saw Stinnett go up in flames. And as a result of the experience I've had, I knew that now this one was going to be different. And I've gained some experience in these different kind of fires because in addition to grass fire cases, back in 2022 in April, when they had the big McBride fire in Ruidoso, New Mexico, and also the crazy Hermit's Peak Calf Canyon fire up west and north of Las Vegas, New Mexico, my phone started ringing. And those things are of a scale that even the big grass fires of the past don't reach. And when I say scale, I'm not just talking about acres. I'm talking about the level and type of destruction that results from these fires. And so when homes start going up and that kind of thing, the scale becomes dramatically bigger. Okay, and so I realized then this was going to be a different situation. We had very early information about the cause. We'll talk more about those things in a minute, but we had very early information about the cause and origin of these fires, particularly this one, Smokehouse Creek, the reamer that joined in with Smokehouse Creek but took out homes in Stinnett on its way, and that Windy Deuce fire that ended up getting Fritch. We had early information on the cause. We knew this one was going to be not only big in terms of what it's done to the people of the Texas Panhandle, but it's big in terms of the organizations who bear responsibility and the fight and the type of fight that then you folks are going to be facing to try to receive any compensation, okay? So what that means is, to me, what that meant is I have to put together a team, and that is what I have done. And I did that immediately. First is my little law firm. I'm now Lovell Hoffman with my partner Chris Hoffman. Chris, stand up here. And my associate attorney, Hannah Rivera, right here. That's us. And then part of what's happened in all the years of wildfire litigation I've done up here is I've become acquainted with other lawyers who do wildfire litigation. And there's another group of lawyers here in the Panhandle who I started out against. They were against me in 2006. And that's Scott Sherwood and Cho Sherwood from Panhandle, Texas. I'm sure many of you know Scott and Cho. Anyway, Scott, after being a defense lawyer in that 2006 fire, he came around to the other side and representing his friends and constituents up here in the northeast Texas Panhandle. So I called Scott and Cho because they know what they're doing as well. But there's more to it than that, because like I said, this is a different kind of fight. It is against a different kind of entity, and it's different, and it's big, and it costs a lot of money, and it is directed from different places. Okay? So these cases I've had out here before, that, for example, that first one I had, the Payne Ranch fire, that was against SPS before XL came in. Many of these fires out here, as you know, are started by oil field companies and the electrical facilities they have that are past the meter, so they're not utility cases. In fact, in the 2006 fire, XL and SPS, they were plaintiffs. They joined in as plaintiffs in that suit to recover damages from the oil field company for all the property that they lost in that fire. I don't know this, but I suspect North Plains Electric is going to be one here too. Driving through here, I was seeing all their equipment that got burned up. So in any event, when you're fighting a big multi-state utility, you don't end up facing a lawyer from Panhandle, Texas, or from Amarillo, Texas. You're facing lawyers from Denver, Colorado, and New York City. Okay? And the claims process, the litigation process is being directed by large law firms in New York City, perhaps Minneapolis, Minnesota, and Denver, Colorado. That means it's a big fight. It's going to cost a lot of money. It's going to take a lot of people, and it's going to take a lot of experience. So then I called the other member and joined him in our team, and that's Mikal Watts. Michael, wave here. Michael's from Austin, Texas. I've known Michael for many, many years. Actually, I'm probably not advancing the screen like I should. There's me, back before I got a haircut. Yeah, I need to stand to the side so I can see what I'm doing. I just introduced you to Chris and Hannah and talked about this right here. So there's the Sherwoods from Panhandle. And I'll leave it till later. You can read that later. There, Mikal Watts. Okay, I've known Michael for many years through my lawyer organizations. And then I came to know Michael very well after an incident in Amarillo. Strangely enough, it occurred during the construction of the XL SPS new headquarters in Amarillo, where they had an electrical fire that killed one young man and horrifically injured my friend Keith Garrison. Anyway, Keith and Cassie hired me to represent them in that matter, and I realized that one, just like what I've been talking about, we were up against big companies from all over, and that was going to be an expensive fight to the death. We needed more, and I knew I was going to have to put together a team. And so I spent quite a bit of time figuring out who was going to be on that team, and I ultimately landed on this guy right here, Mikal Watts. And so Michael and his firm and my firm, we fought that case. I think he may even have a picture here. There's Michael. Okay, well, here's about Michael. Okay. All that to say, he's a really good lawyer, okay? There. Keith, that's Keith and his daughters. That's the SPS building where it happened. Anyway, we together represented them and got a very, very, very good result. Very good result for Keith and his family. And by golly, if ever anybody deserved it, it's Keith. Anyway, that's how we came to work together. So I knew him not just from trial lawyer organizations. I knew him from actually working with him day to day, traveling around the country, taking depositions, preparing pleadings, all of those things that go into it. So that's why I called Michael. And Michael has got the experience and wherewithal to handle a case of this magnitude with this number of people that are affected and to take on a big utility. And in fact, he'll tell you about it in a minute, but I think this says something. As soon as we filed our first suit and XL saw the pleadings, Michael got a phone call from New York City. Okay? They know him, and he knows them. He'll talk more about that later. Anyway, we want you to know that I hope anyway we put together a good team. We're here to talk about what we can try to do for you, what we're going to show you, what we know about the cause of these fires, how this may work if you choose to undertake to challenge, in your case, Smokehouse Creek, XL, and SPS, and Osmos. So we're gonna talk about those things. Michael's going to talk about those things and talk about some of his experience with utilities and these kinds of fires out on the West Coast. So here you go, Michael. Thank you. Here you go. And if you need a pointer.
I'm all right with that one. Thanks. Okay. Hi, guys. First of all, I do want to tell you how sorry I am that we're meeting under these circumstances. I'm a big fan of those mid-'80s comedies, and if you remember the movie Groundhog Day, where he wakes up at 6:04 in the morning every day and does the same thing over again, this wildfire situation has made that my life. It's just repetitive, one after the other after the other. It's a pandemic of wildfires. I didn't know anything about wildfires until about 6 years ago. And I was doing some work for a company you may have heard of called Valero out in Sacramento, and we were doing a practice court called a mock trial. And I couldn't breathe. My larynx was shutting down. And I'm not one of these guys that cry babies about stuff, but I could not breathe. And I opened up the newspaper, and there was a wildfire that had happened in Santa Rosa, California, wherever that is. And we started looking into it. And the next thing you know, we had an office in Santa Rosa, and we represented 2,000 people against PG&E. And then a year later, they burned down the town of Paradise. You probably heard about that, the Camp Fire that killed 84 people. Burned down 14,000 houses. So we set up another office there and ended up representing them. This lawyer from New York you're going to hear about decided it would be cute and took him into bankruptcy court. We became bankruptcy lawyers. Anyway, the good guys won. We ended up settling that case for $13.5 billion, which sounds like a bunch of money, except it was for 72,000 people. That's how much these wildfires cause damage. And I'm supposed to be the guy that knows what he's doing up here on this, but I've already screwed up. You'll notice the bottom line is, I live on a ranch in Mountain Home right near Kerrville, but I didn't have the good sense to wear jeans and boots. I blame my wife for that. Right after I did my third helping at Thanksgiving, she said I tipped the scales at about 300 pounds, and my son's getting married next Saturday. She goes, "You're never going to fit in your tux." And she put me on a diet. And I had been starved for 4.5 months and lost 40 of those 300 pounds, but my jeans don't fit. And so these were the only pants that would fit. And so here I am. Next week when I come back, I'll have some size 38s instead of size 46s. It'll fall down to my ankles and embarrass me. But anyway, that's my cop-out. This is what I mean. This is all I have been doing since 2017. They happen over and over and over again. And just to be blunt, before I got into this, I thought Smokey the Bear was the guy that prevented wildfires. I thought it was dummies leaving a campfire, not the one that killed 84 people, just an arsonist and this and that. And it turns out when you get into it, the percentage of these massive wildfires that are caused by utility equipment is stunning. And it happens up and down the West Coast. I've got cases in California and Oregon and Washington, New Mexico, Colorado. And the most recent tragedy before yours is 102 people burned alive on one of the prettiest places of the earth, Lahaina, on the island of Maui. I'm bringing that up because the reason that those people burned alive is the exact same reason that your property got all burned up. It's got the same failure mode, and that is a utility that has a statutory obligation to make sure that its poles don't degrade into sawdust and fall over in high winds and ignite fires, are properly inspected and replaced when they need to be replaced. These utility companies don't do that themselves. They contract it out to an entity, in your case, called Osmos Utility Services. As it happens, the same company inspected the pole in Lahaina, Maui. And I'm going to show you those pictures. And so it really is a little bit of deja vu all over again. And Bill Murray waking up and seeing the same thing. But it's really scary because XL had 6.5 months from the time that Hawai'i Electric killed 102 people with a bad pole to make sure that your poles were in good shape. And they, in fact, we can prove, inspected the pole that fell here weeks or months before it fell. So some people have some answers that they need to give us. I just want to kind of break it down into 3 topics and I just take you through what we've done so far, what we'll do as part of our protocol, and a little bit more about who we are, okay? In terms of what we've done, Joe's right. I think the day after the fire, he called me and he says, "My hometown is burning up." And he didn't mean Amarillo, but his home area. And my favorite nephew is getting married to the prettiest thing you've ever seen from up in these areas. And I immediately knew it, and I called her in-laws and go, "Oh my God, it's the worst thing you've ever seen, the Hawkins family." And we got to work. Originally, I told Joe I need a couple of days. I think I had to go out to Hawaii and work on that other case. But then by the time I got back, I learned that this small grass fire was now 1.1 million acres burned to the ground. And so we started going to work to figure out what happened. And we had some ideas, and we put the word out, and we talked to people, and we started doing stuff. But there were a lot of different fires. And so I want to talk to you first about Smokehouse Creek. Then we'll talk about some of the others. And if you've got questions about others, I'll tell you what the plan is, okay? Smokehouse Creek we'll talk about because it's the big boy. We got the basic information. We have a protocol that we follow. It happened on the 26th at around 3:15, or was discovered. I think Joe had called me that evening or the next day, and then I got back from Hawaii 2 days later, and it was this big. So what do we know? Well, we know a couple of things. When I get a call from somebody like Joe, you can immediately get satellite images that tell you where the smoke is going and from where it came. And it's real easy to see. It's like Google is watching us all, right? So you get on Google Earth, for the lack of thing, wind's going from the west to the east. And so that's telling me immediately that the fire's happening somewhere over here. So everybody's focus is over here. And of course, you know what happened now, but when we started, we were working from scratch, right? We knew that the point of origin of the fire happened in an area where there were no other ignition sources. It was strictly a utility line. And so we figured it was probably XL. We figured it was probably the utility line, about 1 mile north of Stinnett. We knew where it was. And so then we sent some people out. Is everything good along that line? And we found this. Joe's paralegal, Nita. Where are you, Nita? Okay, I want to give credit to the professional photographer amongst us. I think she took this picture, but you'll see that it's been snapped in half. It's not in half, it's down at the bottom, but it's classic failure. Same thing happened in Maui. So we have a general idea what's going on. There was a lot of discussion about getting what's called a temporary restraining order against XL to keep them from spoliating or changing the evidence. To keep us from doing that, they invited us out to this inspection. Joe had his people out there. I had Nita, who's in charge of Joe, and we documented it. And so you can see it here, what happened. And the bottom line is the ignition point location from the fire patterns and the satellite image is exactly the location where this pole has fallen. And it's also in the right location that it's spread from there towards the east. So we know we've got something. We start doing an in-person inspection. Nita's taking these pictures, and it's spooky how similar this pole looks to the one in Maui. This is, and it's hard to tell because we have a lack of light in here, is classic degradation of wood. The complaint out in Maui is when you put a wooden pole in the most corrosive coastal environment ever imaginable, 35-mile-an-hour Pacific winds, rain, heat, you're going to get all sorts of fungi that are eating that wood, okay? When you get into the details here, you can see all the same indicia. Okay, I know you're not famous for your rain up here, but you get enough of it with rain, heat, wind, salt air, this kind of thing. Another interesting thing is we see a red tag. And this is a code word, and we'll take depositions that show it, that basically says this pole is not stable. They put a red tag to tell people two things. Number one, it's not safe enough to climb because if you climb it to work on it, it will fall over, which ought to tell you in high winds, it will fall over. Secondly, it's a tag, it's a message to XL, this baby needs to be replaced, okay? The second important thing, and I hope you can see this, is it says Osmos, and then it's got 2024. Somebody at Osmos inspected this pole in 2024. Now we know when this fire started in February of 2024, so it wasn't long before. That's what you call pretty good evidence. That XL was on notice that this was a bad pole that needed to be pulled and replaced and hadn't done it, okay? Now, more importantly to me, and this ought to disgust you, here is the picture that was taken at the inspection that Nita went to. And on the other side of the globe in Maui, 4 days before, we finally got an order from Hawai'i Electric to give us access to all the wooden evidence that they removed from the start of that fire. And my partner, John Givens, who will work on this case, takes this picture. And this is pole 7A on Lahaina Luna Road, just above Lahaina, Maui, Hawaii. It's where the fire started. This pole fell down. And pole 7A, I hadn't even noticed this little coin thing when I saw it last week. But you're going to notice two things. It says in Maui that same company, Osmos, has inspected it first in 2010, again in 2022, before a fire that began in August of 2023. It's the same quarter, if you will, that's pounded into your pole. Same company, missed it in Maui, killed 102 people. Missed it here or didn't get it pulled, burned down 1.1 million acres and killed a lot of your cattle, burned down 44 of your homes, hundreds of your structures, wiped out ranch after ranch after ranch. That's why we're here. Now, when you look at it carefully, we'll have, believe it or not, there are experts in wood degradation. I never knew that. But they exist, and they've looked at the pole in Maui, and we'll get them back from Maui up to here. But they will conclude that this is the same kind of evidence of, in effect, degradation of wood at the very point of the break. So we have the causation about why it snapped. The only other reason is high winds. Well, you know what? You can't sue God for high winds. You have to protect against what we know is going to be high winds, whether it be from Hurricane Dora passing 500 miles to the south of Maui, or high winds that tend to happen in the Texas Panhandle. Okay? So we've got that. And you can see a little better light here. It's just a bad piece of wood. It's degraded. It's corroded at that point. And Nita, thank you for all these pictures. And it snapped right at the area of heavy corrosion. So we've got it fairly well documented now, courtesy of Joe's office and Nita and the like. This is probably your best. You see this lightning of the, it's just corrosion. It's fungus taking over wood, okay? All right. So I put out a press release kind of saying XL needs to pay for this. Killed several people, burned alive thousands of your cattle, destroyed hundreds of homes and structures, incinerated over 1 million acres of precious and valuable Texas ranch land. To their credit, that lawyer in New York City, I called him on the 6th. His name is Kevin Orsini. He is with a law firm called Cravath something in Swain. It's like 1,200 lawyers in New York City. I know Kevin because he was PG&E's lawyer in the Camp Fire and the North Bay fires where we represented those tens of thousands of people back in 2017 and 18. He was the guy with whom I negotiated that settlement, okay? And I just was kind of being a smart aleck, and I said, Kevin, how much insurance does Osmos have? Because I think they owe us both a bunch of money. 16 hours later, he put out a press release from his client saying, we did it. It's our pole. So good for them. That's a start, okay? It's not all great, but it's a start. They did the same thing in what's called the Dixie Fire out in California. We'll pay, just give us your claims. And then they sprinkled a couple of nickels at people and didn't pay them. So we had to sue them, and now we're getting them really paid, okay? But the bottom line is it's a start. It's good. XL's statement comes out, I believe, on the 7th. We acknowledge that its facilities appear to have been involved in an ignition of the Smokehouse Creek fire. By facilities, they mean that pole, okay? Texas A&M Forestry. If this were to happen out in California, we wait a year for an organization called CAL FIRE to tell us what starts these fires, which is why I always get my own experts. I can't wait that long. You guys are out of house and home. You need to know. But to the great credit of Texas A&M Forestry, they had a report out very shortly after with a bunch of photographs. We'll get the laser versions or the digital versions of all these. Their pictures are better than Nita's. No offense, Nita. Probably had the better camera. Joe cheaped out on you, but the bottom line is that we'll have high definition, good documentation of the corroded wood, okay? They did a really nice report. I know you can't see it from here, but as you highlight away, you'll see at the bottom of page 2 or 68, and the top, you'll see that they're going through, hey, is arson excluded? Yes. Is campfire excluded? Yes. Children excluded. Debris burning, equipment, lightning, fireworks, railroads, smoking, other structures, everything was excluded. The only other possibility is the power lines. And they conclude a 3-wire power line feeding power to the location ran directly through the general area of origin. A power pole that appeared to be decayed at the base, where it made contact with ground, had broken off at the ground level. The power pole with cross member and wires attached fell in an easterly direction, making contact with the ground and fine grassy fuels. Now, I went to the University of Texas at Austin, but I 100% agree with my friends the Aggies here. They're right. They did a great job. It's a good report, okay? Their conclusion, the origin and cause of the investigation conducted on the Smokehouse Creek fire revealed evidence in the specific area of origin that consisted of a power pole with wires and cross members attached that had broken off at the ground level, causing the pole to fall to the ground in an easterly direction. The power lines made contact with the ground and fine grassy fuels. Let me stop there. Anybody who's ever lived in the Texas Panhandle understands that these grasses, dried out as they are, become fuel if you provide an ignition source. The key to preventing wildfires is to prevent the ignition source. Unless some dummy decides to start with arson or throw a cigarette butt or a mechanical thing, or God himself in his infinite wisdom decides a lightning strike, the only other thing that causes this is utility fires. And here we are. The power lines made contact with the ground, the fine grassy fuels thus sparking or causing a spark, or molten metal to ignite the fuels causing a wildfire. The burn indicators in the specific area of origin show advancing fire in an easterly direction. The fire cause is determined to be the power line. And they're right, of course, okay? So this is a good start to the claims process in fire litigation. This is what we would call a lay-down case, okay? And I'm glad that Joe called me immediately. I used to think it was kind of bad form to get working on these things this fast, but there's so much evidence. And please believe me when I tell you that I understand that most of you have never been a plaintiff in a lawsuit in your life, okay? I've never filed a lawsuit against anybody in the state of Texas, and I've lived here all my life, okay? But there are certain cases protected by the 7th Amendment to the United States Constitution that are righteous civil litigation, and I wanted to give you the level of detail that you need to feel good about being involved in this. This is not McDonald's hot coffee. This is not somebody with a sore neck pretending they're a quadriplegic. This is not BS litigation. This is the purpose of it being in the Constitution, to allow people to recover their damages, but more importantly, and the good news is, and I'm telling you, I believe in what I do, these lawsuits are going to put me out of business. You can already see the technologies that exist in California in 2024 that were not there when we started in 2017. There are good technologies that prevent this. There's all sorts of methods and procedures and public safety power shutoffs and good wood maintenance, good vegetation maintenance. There's switch technologies that prevent, even if you have something fall to the ground, from it starting a fire. So this is not going to be something that we're going to have to worry about absent a lightning strike in 10 years. That's the good news. But it's going to take community pressure with everybody being involved to force these utilities to accelerate the spend that it takes to harden the grid, is what we call it, to prevent this from ever happening to you again, okay? Now, so we know what started the Smokehouse Creek fire. The next thing that I wanted to know, and I kind of knew these answers, was what was their statutory obligation and what was their administrative rule obligation. They're regulated by the Texas Public Utilities Commission. So what are they required to do? And with y'all's permission, I'm going to lose this jacket real quick. Can't even put it inside a belt because I'm on the last ring. I'm so proud. No, I'm kidding. All right. The bottom line is that the legislature makes laws. Bad things happen. You remember the Bastrop fire in 2011? It was a big deal. Lots of legislation came out. Hey, how are we going to prevent these kind of utility-caused wildfires? So all of a sudden, the Texas legislature tells the PUC, the Public Utilities Commission, we want you to create all these new rules to make the utilities have these plans to do vegetation maintenance, to keep trees from falling into lines, to do grid hardening, to replace bad poles, and the like, okay? So, at a meeting in June of 2010, the PUC, we'll call it, creates a rule for utility infrastructure storm hardening. Storm hardening can be a hurricane down where I used to live in Corpus Christi. It can just as easily be a high wind up in the Texas Panhandle, okay? You know you're going to have these harsh winds. How do you protect the grid? And so what they did in 2010 is they adopted a rule called 2595 that said every electric utility in the state has to submit 5-year plans about what we're going to do for wildfire mitigation, okay? And it's cool. They did it both with respect to vegetation maintenance and storm hardening, and they require these storm hardening plans. And there's 2595A to ensure that the electric utility has developed a storm hardening plan to increase the ability of its transmission and distribution facilities to withstand extreme weather conditions. So they have to make the plan, they have to submit it to the PUC, they have to in effect get it blessed. And then they've got to update it. That's really good for us because it used to be we couldn't tell what they'd done. Now we know what they promised to do and can contrast that with what they didn't get done. The Hawaii version of this, the pole that was supposed to have been replaced that fell and killed 102 people, that was in the plan. But Hawaii Electric deferred maintenance for 5 years in a row and didn't get to replacing the pole. We don't know that that's the case here yet, but we see that a lot, okay? So, by May 1st of 2011, the utility shall file with the Commission a summary of its storm hardening plan. They have to detail the utility's current and future storm hardening plans over a 5-year period, beginning January 1st, 2021. Why is that important? At the time of your fire, we are now in SPS's 3rd 5-year period. So we'll have a plan in 2011, we'll have one in 16, we'll have one in 2021. So we'll know exactly what they promised the regulators they would do versus what they didn't get done, okay? All right, they've also got to do any material revisions to the plan. In other words, if they defer maintenance, they got to tell us. The storm hardening plan shall include at a minimum something with respect to transmission and distribution pole construction standards, pole attachment policies, and pole testing schedule. You might ask yourself, how do you test a pole? It's the thing that Osmos is doing to make sure it still works, okay? All right, so that's what they have to do as it affects you. What do they say they're doing? So we dug up a bunch of Excel documents, and by the way, this isn't Excel's first rodeo. There's a fire in Colorado that happened 2 years and 3 months ago called the Marshall Fire, just outside of Boulder, okay? So there's been a lot of litigation. We know a lot about what they say, but with respect to poles, that's part of their distribution system that facilitates the delivery of voltage electricity to end-use customers. They hire people, this is a job board, that are specifically responsible for pole integrity programs. The person they're hiring is responsible for developing and executing the distribution wood pole inspection and treatment program. You can treat this wood to slow down the degradation, or you can replace the wood. Transmission and distribution wood pole reinforcement, restoration program across XL Energy, blah, 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 blah. Now, XL Energy, as Joe mentioned, is based in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It is a very large, multi-state utility that basically covers the center of the country from all the way to Minnesota down to you. So think in terms of the central and the mountain time zone going from Minneapolis to Amarillo. And that's XL. All right. Part of this guy's job, and this is going to be important, includes the development of a portfolio of contracted service providers to perform this work. They make the contract with Osmos. Why is that important? Under both Texas law and the PUC administrative rules, taking care of your poles is what's called a non-delegable duty. You can't just contract it out and say they did it. You're still responsible for it because they want the big utilities to have oversight to ensure that their contractors are actually doing the work, okay? Now, you can take it to the bank that XL and SPS are going to blame this on Osmos. I've had cases where we didn't sue the pole instructor. It slows things down. So we sued them in this case, okay? Because they're just like a circular firing squad. They're firing at each other, but it's still SPS's responsibility as the utility. All right. They're doing all sorts of upgrades here in the Panhandle. They needed to because it's an aging infrastructure. Part of what they're doing is replacing aging poles and wires across the Texas Panhandle service area. They do that pursuant to that plan, pursuant to a schedule that sometimes is met, sometimes is not. When we get the 2011, 16, and 21 plans, we'll know whether or not they set the schedule correctly. They clearly didn't, right? They had a bad pole. Or that pole was scheduled for replacement and wasn't. It's going to be one or the other. All right. They have replaced over 3,000 poles and 100 miles of distribution line, and that's part of their upgraded grid through their wildfire mitigation program in 2022. All of the different states from Minnesota down to Texas require a wildfire mitigation plan to be published. So we have that plan. What they say is we're going to do this, but we're going to do our best to keep our costs down. And look, I mean, it's my job as a plaintiff's lawyer to say they're a greedy company and all they care about is money. I get it. It's a regulated utility, and we don't want to pay for more costs that aren't necessary. But they have a guaranteed profit margin for which they have a right to be reimbursed through rate increases. Okay? There are shareholders making plenty of money with what you're paying every month. So don't think the poor little XL are going to go under if I participate in this. What's going to happen is their profits are going to go down as they invest, and then we're going to prevent another wildfire. Okay? All right. Wildfire mitigation. What did they know? As climate conditions have changed, and I'm not going to get into that political furball, but I think we can all agree that what used to be fire season is now an obligation to watch out year-round. Okay? The traditional fire season has evolved into a year-round battle against larger, stronger, and faster wildfires. All true. Xcel Energy's comprehensive wildfire risk mitigation program helps protect lives, homes, and properties from the threat of wildfire. If they don't get it right, people die. If they don't get it right, people's property burns down. They know that. Since its launch in 2019, the mitigation program has inspected thousands of miles of transmission and distribution lines, hardened our system through the repair and replacement, and managed the vegetation around our line. All directionally good. The question is, did they do it appropriately? Fast enough, as they said. In 2022, they replaced 3,051 distribution poles. There's a similar number in 2023. There's going to be a lot of money and quarterbacking about did you do that fast enough? Okay? And again, to me, what I'm seeing in these cases over and over again is a schedule that's delayed for one reason or the other. I don't know the answer to that yet. I want to be clear. Okay? All right. They've also got to provide affidavits on a yearly basis, complying with various statutory obligations. This is a certification. You'll notice it's signed by Brent Mathieson, who is the president and COO, I think, of SPS. They call themselves Xcel Texas or Xcel Energy Texas, but it's a subsidiary of Xcel. Okay. Their wildfire mitigation program recognizes that wildfires pose a significant year-round threat to our customers, communities, and our state as a whole, and we are proactively implementing programs to minimize ignition risks associated with operating our system. As part of our commitment to safety, we're continually making strategic investments and improvements to support our power grid, build resilience, and increase our situational awareness. What does all this mean? The word resilience you hear a lot. That is to keep poles from falling down. Okay? Increase our situational awareness is having things like weather stations so that if you know you're going to have 60-mile-an-hour winds, you can do special things. One of those special things is called a public safety power shutoff. Customers hate it because that ham that you got in the fridge goes bad. But most people would trade that ham for their entire house and their ranch any day of the week. So it's very much part of the arsenal of protective options that we have that gets used out in California a lot now. All right. Their wildfire mitigation program overview. The overall risk, frequency, and severity of wildfires is increased. That creates a duty to do better, to do more. It's a year-long battle against rapidly changing and more extreme weather conditions that can generate larger, more intense, and faster-moving wildfires. And we've got to spend the money to, quote, minimize the risk of asset-caused wildfires. We've got to do more inspections to reduce the chance of causing ignition. So they knew what they had to do. They've got a cool graphic that's hard to see here, but the bottom line is system rebuild projects is updating equipment like poles within wildfire zones of which you are a part to wildfire-rated equipment. They've got a cross-functional wildfire mitigation team to accelerate inspections in these zones to replace poles that pose an increased wildfire risk. This is all shouldas. That's not Mikal Watts saying they should have, it's them saying they should have. And then lastly, they say we're continually making strategic investments and improvements to strengthen our power grid, build resilience, and increase our situational awareness. Our work in this area, poles. Replacing poles, removing equipment that may create the potential for incidents. So it's a pretty good case as they go in terms of they already knew what they needed to do, okay? So then we started looking at what other contractors have to say. We've only sued one of the contractors, which is Osmos, because they had their coin on the pole that fell. But there's three of them that we're going to want to talk to. One of them is called Geodigital. It's a work studio that allows them to, in effect, set the schedule. So when we're arguing about whether the schedule was done appropriately, if it was being followed, we might want to talk to Geodigital with respect to wood pole maintenance. And so Excel used that for a while. Then they switched over. Their inspector is Osmos. I think we've already told you who they are. Osmos has a website that says, look, there's 150 million wood poles that are our electricity grid. They're important. But then they talk about how poles lose strength and can affect your system's safety if you don't remedially treat them to mitigate decay that we know is going to happen. That decay is because they're susceptible to degradation through abiotic deterioration. And so you got to have a preservative on the wood, and then you have to treat it systemically to prevent these little biotic degradants from eating up the wood. Some of you may have heard of something called a termite. That's what a biotic degradant is. That was what was all over the center of the wood pole that fell in Maui, okay? In order for termites to have their way, they need a food source, which is the wood. They need moisture, rain, air, which we've got, wind, heat, we surely have. All of the conditions you need for termites to have their way are present. And so the regulatory area is mandating on the utilities to fix the poles because we have to maximize their safe use. It's a safety issue. There's another group called EPRI. This is very recent, like 2022-23. It's clear that Excel switched over to EPRI. We're going to want to talk with them. Whether they followed what EPRI told them to do, I don't know yet. But EPRI says the same thing. Wood poles have a finite service life. The poles can fail due to catastrophic wind events, but mostly gradually degrade because of natural stressors. Load, insects, birds, bacteria, fungi. And so Excel is going to use what's called the Transmission Asset Health Analytics System to allow them to set their schedule. So we'll talk to these folks as well. EPRI says wood poles often degrade from a variety of factors, making the process of assessing pole health essential. And they're right. So when Excel Energy Services, Inc. experienced challenges managing its wood pole fleet, the company reached out to EPRI. And so this analytical model allows Excel to predict and account for the rate of pole replacement and maintenance. Excel says we're going to use it. We'll talk to Brian Lawrence, the Senior Director of Transmission Asset Management at Excel, because they clearly made some sort of an asset renewal and maintenance decision based on this. So this is areas of discovery we'll have to get into. Second fire. Joe mentioned Fridge. And I am so sorry if you are from this town. We know what caused it. We know where it was. There it is. We've got before and after aerials. We know that the town was, effectively wiped out. This is what caused it. This is a private line owned by an oil field service company called Polaris. Polaris is in bankruptcy in the Southern District of Texas. And so if you are a survivor of this fire, we'll need to make what's called an administrative claim. It's a post-filing administrative claim, which is okay. But you can see that the wire has been abraded. That's from trees falling into it. But again, Polaris didn't properly keep the trees out. When you look at the video of this, it goes right through trees that are going back and forth, and that's what caused that fire, not XL. We've already filed an administrative claim in that bankruptcy court, and explained what's going on, the burn patterns and the like. So if you have a Windy Deuce case, we've got the book on them, and we're happy to file that on your behalf against Polaris, who will have insurance to cover this. The last one I want to talk to you about real quick is the 687 Reamer. And again, smaller, but as Joe says, it kind of merged into what became the Smoky Creek fire. And so we got to look at it. But for us, it's good. It was also a bad pole. Same failure mode. And again, hard to see these pictures, but thank you, Nita. And you can see, again, some damage on there as the thing falls. So we've got a pretty good idea what caused that as well. So that's what we've done. If you choose to get involved, what will we do? What will it look like? And this is the reason that I think that Joe really called me. Joe Lovell is one hell of a good lawyer, and everything I've read about Scott Sherwood is they don't need Mikal Watts to talk to juries. They are great trial lawyers. And I'm honored every time Joe calls me to do a case together with him, because I love working with good lawyers on good cases, not McDonald's coffee. Okay? And Joe knew that his neighbors were in need, and so I said, Joe, look, I don't like being the guy that people create. Why are you guys doing this so quick? This is about lawyers, da 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 da. I mean, I get it, okay? I'm a very conservative guy that lives on a ranch. But what I've learned is if you don't get moving, evidence disappears, documents disappear, poles are removed and somehow lost. And so it's just important to get something on file, get what's called a temporary restraining order, get evidence preservation, and good lawyers in Amarillo, Texas have achieved that on all of your behalf. We filed a lawsuit on behalf of Melanie McQuitty, who I want to give just a bit of credit to. It's hard going first, and I'm sure she caught some crap from her neighbors. But somebody had to allow their name to be used so we could get these orders and get this evidence preserved. So God bless her, and if you see her, thank her. We sued XL, we sued SPS, and we sued Osmos on her behalf. She was burned out of house and home. If that's not a good lawsuit, I don't know what is. That's the video of her property on the right side, completely wiped out. But the main reason is she knows that we were kind of using her. She stood up for the greater good so that we could start getting orders and preserve the evidence. And the reason that we were invited to the pole excavation was Melanie McQuitty saying, yes, I'll go first, okay? All right, so we know where Smokehouse Creek started. We got the word out. I started getting a bunch of calls from a bunch of people. I don't know what News Nation is, but they asked me to come in and talk about what we found, so we did. There's a lot of, I'm not going to call them copycat lawsuits. These are other good lawyers filing lawsuits primarily for the Smokehouse Creek case. We filed ours on the 1st of March. This last one was filed on the 8th of March. And some of it was at my encouragement because we wanted to immediately get the process started so you're not waiting around. The one thing I cannot stand is lawyers that brag about getting you a bunch of money but take 6 years to do it. It doesn't do you any good when you're not living in a house. So because there are 8 of them filed last week, people ask me how long this is going to take. If it's not done well, it takes years and years and years and years. If it's done well, we can get things moving. Part of doing it well is we filed a motion on Friday in effect with the Supreme Court of Texas. There's a group of 5 judges that are appointed by the Chief Justice called the Texas Multi-District Litigation Panel, the Texas MDL panel. If you have multiple lawsuits in different counties with common issues of fact, the legislature has decided that it's best for pretrial purposes only to throw them in together in front of one judge making rulings so that you're only taking somebody's deposition once, not 50 times or 500 times. But when those cases are sent back to the local courts where they should be tried. 500 different cases can use that one deposition. Make sense? Pre-trial coordination. So we filed a motion together with every other lawyer that had filed a motion, agreed to it, saying we want pre-trial coordination now. Some of you may have heard about the opioids litigation. You know, the painkillers that were, all that stuff. I represented half the state, cities, counties, and like that. That all ended up in an MDL, but it took us 6 months to get started because we were under the weird assumption that they wouldn't move to consolidate. They did. There were fights and everything like that. Let's get the fight over. Let's get going. So we're starting it. All right. Now, if you happen to be in the Grapevine Creek fire, the Thuck Creek fire, the Crawford Ranch fire, the Little Highline fire, the Bent Willow fire, the Carbon fire, the Britt fire, the Washite River fire, the Antelope Hills fire, mark down March the 18th. If you're from one of those fires, I need you to tell me today, okay? One of the reasons I'm up here on a Sunday, and I'm sorry, I was in church this morning. My wife thinks I'm a rotten hell for doing this on Sundays. And I'm sorry, but I can't wait. I got full schedule. And this guy is coming on the 18th. So if there's a list of other fires that you want us to investigate, please tell the folks out front. And Mike Schultz, who is, in my view, the best fire cause and origin expert in the world, will be down here on the 18th. And I don't really need him for the Smokehouse Creek fire anymore, right? We kind of got that one figured out. But if you're in one of those other burn zones, let me know and we'll get him working on it immediately, okay? All right. So he'll be on site reviewing all the other fires that you all tell us you want us to do. He's got a BS in fire and safety engineering, a master's in safety, security, and emergency management. He's a graduate from the National Fire Academy. He was on the NFPA, the National Fire Protection Association Technical Committee on Fire Investigations. He'll be here, but this is a little primer about fire reconstruction just for a second. Before he died, Steve Jobs invented something called the iPhone. Nokia's got them, Samsung, all this. There's like 3 billion of them in the world. I can't believe it. Smartphones, where you merge the phone and the camera. As it happens, people in the Texas Panhandle are no different than people in Northern California, Southern California. Of course you're different, but in this respect. You have a weird habit when you're running for your life from a wildfire of taking pictures and video. And God bless that habit, okay? Preserve that evidence. It's super important for a lot of reasons, okay? If there's a dispute about how it happened or how it spread, some of those videos are the reason that people in California got paid, okay? It's contemporaneous evidence, so important. It's also important to you, separate and apart from the greater good, in that it proves you were in what's called the zone of danger. If your iPhone's got videos and pictures of fire near you, you were near the fire. And I need that to be able to recover some elements of damage on your behalf. So if you've got pictures like this that are just more like where the burn was, that's very helpful, because right now it's just all black and I've got to show where it started, where it went to, this kind of stuff. So these active burn pictures are good. If you've got pictures as you're escaping the fire from your car, I want those because it proves that you were in the burn zone, in the zone of danger for purposes of that. And then if you've got something like somebody fighting a fire, I especially need that, not necessarily for your own good, but for the good of the people that, we lost some souls, and we've got to do our best for them, okay? So preserve that evidence. It's all digital. I run a paperless office. We can download your pictures. We won't be looking at your private text, all that other stuff. We just need the good stuff, okay? All right. I'm going to hand over the floor to Dr. John Brown.
First, I want you to hand over the floor to me.
Okay, hold on. I'm not done yet. Just a second. So Dr. Brown is going to become your new neighbor. This man, he's the only PhD that I know that puts his clients in front of himself. I've called on him in fire after fire after fire, and he literally moves to where they are for months on end. And you will get to know Dr. John Brown. He is a good dude, and he will go to your properties and do what's needed to do to build the economic framework of your damages. His education, his methodology, I'll let him talk about. He's part of our effort to generate reports that we need to get them to pay you, and he will literally spend months here on your behalf, okay? In terms of his education, I had a good laugh from, Joe gave him a ride here, and I was
still back in Kerrville. And I said, what do you think of John Brown? He'd met Brown before. He goes, oh, God, I just hope they don't think he's some dude from California. I said, hell, he went to East Texas State. Even better than that, he went to Texas A&M. Who can argue against that except for me? Anyway, he's a great guy. He's got a PhD from North Carolina State. He did postdoctoral work on this kind of stuff. And he is the best man in the country, as Joe's about to tell you, to help prove up. There's two sides of a lawsuit, right? I got to prove liability. They're at fault. You got to prove your damages or you're not entitled to them. And John Brown helps you do that. So Joe, go ahead and brag on him and then pass it over to him.
I just want to talk about Dr. Brown a little bit because I've worked with him now for a couple of years in the New Mexico fires. In fact, he and I, for a little while, we were roommates out there in Rosciata, New Mexico, rented a house where he was out doing his work and I was doing my work. Anyway, I've come to know him and come to work with him, and the role he will play here is really kind of coordinator of the damage models. That's what we lawyers call it, the damage models. This is another reason, and you've heard some of the reasons that I brought Mikal Watts into this, the MDL litigation process that was obvious to me as well. This was going to get brought into. Michael's very experienced in that. But also the fact that he's been fighting utilities in these big claims. There's a process that gets developed on how do you put together the damages for so many people in a manner that not only speeds things up for the claims and perhaps litigation process, but also brings the cost of that service down. And so John Brown has basically kind of got that perfected now of how to organize. We'll have other experts. There'll be local people, appraisers, range management people. It's just going to depend on everybody's damages, but John is going to be able to take the results and opinions from these others, pull it together in a consistent model then that through Michael's experience with the big fires and the big utilities works a lot better and goes a lot faster. Anyway, I wanted to let you know that before John gets up here. John is such a nice, soft-spoken guy. He's a huge contrast between me and Watts, but you're going to like John Brown, and he's very helpful. And I can just tell you the clients love him. So, John, if you got something to say, come on up here.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Michael. I'm working out in the Hermit's Peak fire for 2 years, and the McBride fire down in Ruidoso, Bobcat fire down in the Mojave Desert, the Camp fire up in Paradise, Santa Rosa fire, the Zog fire up near Redding, the Slater fire up in Oregon and Northern California. I've evaluated thousands and thousands of properties. Over time, if you join into this effort, I'll get to meet you, usually at your home. We go over your operation. I evaluate some of the damage, but we have other experts. Like, I don't expect to pretend to come close even to evaluate some of your losses. The livestock that had to be put down, horses, people's homes, the trees around your home, or the rose bush that your great-great-grandmother brought across the plains in a wagon, and you still have that same rose bush that burned in the fire. It's my job to put a value on that. but I need your help. Without you, I can't complete my job. And that's why we work together. All the fires out there, people, I get to know them, the tremendous losses they have. I get to feel the pain and the suffering. I asked you earlier, well, were you afraid? Are you still afraid? Yeah, that fear is still deep inside of you. So I'm like the interface. These guys have to take some kind of dollar value to excel. And it comes through me. I have spreadsheets. I develop the spreadsheets. We put the data in the spreadsheet. You get to look it over and say, oh, wait a minute, there's 3 gates out here that you missed. Or there's a half a mile of fence. Well, what kind of fence? 3-strand, 4-strand, T-post, partial wood, 5-strand, 4-foot woven wire with 2 strands, the barbed wire on the top. Think of all the different kinds of fences there are. We have to quantify that, and we have to be able to stand behind it. And so my report that moves forward represents your losses, and that's what I do. There's a lot of different methods I use. For example, satellite imagery. This is a Landsat infrared image. I've been doing satellite imagery for 25 years. It's very helpful in understanding loss. Here's up in Dalhart. And then here's other imagery of the fire scars. What about your soil? You know, the impact on your soil and the characteristics of your soil before and after the fire depend upon how hot it was. And we can use satellite imagery to look at the more intense areas of your farm. So you may expect to have problems there. But your problems aren't just today. Your problems are going to go on next year, and next year. You're going to have future damages. It's my job to determine into the future what your damages are going to be and then bring those back to future or to present value. What about your range? I saw in the paper, my daughter pointed it out to me yesterday at lunch. Oh, Dad, look, the range is turning green again. Well, what exactly is green out there? Is it the diversity of grasses that were established there before the fire? Or is it a mixture of grasses and weeds, invasive weeds that the cattle can't even digest? That's something we have to look at. And those invasive weed problems are temporary. They may last 3 years before you get the diversity back in your grass. So those are some of the things we look at. Those are the burn scars I was talking about. We have to analyze the intensity of the burn scars on your land. And aerial images. Here's some aerial images. So we have to go and look at individual properties. So we have to have high resolution imagery. I fly drones. If you are involved in this, your property will be droned. We will fly a video over each parcel. And you may not even own some of the land. You may just be renting, You may pay an annual grazing fee, but yet you're impacted, and the landowner's impacted. So we have to look at those particular types of situations. So I fly the drones. I collect the drone videos. Now there's about 1,000 or 1,400 properties I just did out on Hermit's Peak. I only have 15 left. I'm almost done with Hermit's Peak in New Mexico. and I have 1 million photographs. Think about that. Let's just say half of everybody in here signed up. I have to keep track of your drone footage, each photograph, maps of your property. It all has to be coordinated. We have to put that together. And all these attorneys have to have access to it. They need to know what's going on your property. So I provide methodology so that at any moment they can go look up the spreadsheet, which is online, very secure, by the way, down in Mikal Watts' office in San Antonio or Austin. And that's a very secure location, but they can check, and if you want a conversation with them, they can give you an idea of where you're at. Now you think about the amount of work that has to go into that. Fortunately, we've already done it. It's all put together. All these processes have evolved over years. So you're getting the benefit of a cost saving in a sense, because we're much more efficient in handling each individual client's claim. Let's see. Well, I use software. Most of you have heard of Onyx. It's a software for hunters. And there's a program called Glide and Google Earth. So I have to understand the property boundaries, and we might have to use plat maps. And when I'm on your property, and I'm on my four-wheeler, where I was talking about, he said, oh, you can't get back in there, you have to have a horse. But I have a Rokon motorcycle. It's two-wheel drive, the Navy SEALs use it, I can go anywhere. And he agreed, yeah, I can get back in there with a Rokon. But I have to know where I'm at. So with my GPS device, I know exactly where I am in your property. And I keep track of that. There's a map of it. So when we do a property, you have a map of where we've been and what we've looked at. Each photograph we take has a coordinate on it, latitude and longitude. You can take that photograph and pull it into Google Earth, and boom, it pulls up right exactly where I took it. And this is an example. You can see the property lines, and that's just an example of how we can handle one individual property. And then your neighbor's property and your other neighbors. Okay, let's see. Yeah, right here. Your infrastructure. So we have to look at your fencing, your water tanks, windmills, gates, bridges, barns, buildings, power lines, irrigations, pivot, water lines, and other infrastructure. And for homeowners, I go into detail. You may have gardens, you may have flower beds, you may have a sauna on the back porch or a deck, or what do you call those things, those whirlpools? Hot tubs. Yeah, so we have to make sure that we have all your property that was damaged, and we have to put it in an orderly fashion into a report. That's how we pretty much handle it. There's livestock issues. I will not be the livestock expert. There will be another expert. But the most important person is you, and the husband and the wife. You all know what you have there. And you all have records usually. It's the wife that keeps the good records. The husband's a little slack at times. So I depend on the wife more often than the husband. Grazing interruption. You know, you've probably had a genetic diversity within your cattle that you've developed over generations. All that has to be looked at, because it's going to take years to put that back. And there's more future damages. And I think the photographs, we talked about that. that's it for me. And I'm sorry this happened to you. Thank you.
Just one other thing I wanted to point out. I don't need to hand it to Michael. He doesn't do all this himself. He's got a team. And in fact, I've come to know, and I know anyway, a young man on his team, which you will actually be seeing, who does throw a saddle on a horse. He grew up on a ranch out by Las Vegas, New Mexico, got educated recently at New Mexico State University in agriculture. He's been working for John now for quite some time out there in the Hermit's Peak fire. And so you're gonna like him. Gabe Gregory, you're gonna like Gabe. Anyway, so John's gonna have some help doing that kind of work. I just wanted you to know that. Here you go, Mike.
Let me tell you a couple more things about John Brown. He can only do one at a time. So he hires staff to help him like that, and we just do it in the order that people get hired. And so it's a long process, but the sooner you can help us with the documenting of the evidence that we need, the better off we are. I don't want to say anybody's lucky that your fire happened in February. There's nothing lucky about a fire. But it's better than a fire that's happening 3 weeks before the snow starts, where you can't see anything for 6 months, like in New Mexico or something like that. So the fact that this happened in February gives us some running room to get the work done before, the snow starts and like that. So that's actually good. The second thing I want to tell you about John Brown, I told you he was a good dude. I'm on him constantly to get this work done, and he probably works 16, 18 hours a day. God bless you, John. But literally, Joe called me on a Thursday. I think your fire started on a Tuesday, if I'm wrong. Joe called me on Thursday, and I called Brown, and I told my paralegal, I said, hey, I want you to call Brown, get him on the phone, we do a Zoom call. And I said, tell him I need him finished with Hermit's Peak. And I knew he was almost done, but I was kind of riding him a little bit. And he knows that I am just all over this Maui fire case. I've got 1,600 clients out there, 28 of the death people. I mean, it's awful. And he gets on the phone, and he's practically got an Aloha shirt on. He's so excited. And, he's got a lei around him, and he says, so I'm going to Maui. I said, no, sir, you're going to the Texas Panhandle with that East Texas State University and Texas A&M degree. And no questions asked. I mean, this was on Friday. I said, any chance you can be down here on Sunday? And here he is. The guy's heart is in the right place. Okay, so just for whatever it's worth. Now, when John gets all his work done, we'll create damages reports, and part of this is John, part of this is stuff that we've developed in an internal database. If you were burned, homes and vehicles, personal properties, which is all the stuff inside, trees and outdoors, which John does, injuries and deaths, lost income if you have a business claim. We call general liability, that's where we put all your pictures, because we need them. All that goes into my database, and we keep going and we keep filling it in and we keep bugging you until we've got everything we need, okay? And so this is, I spent about $1 million on this damn database, and I was upset when they told me how expensive it was, but we've used it like 9 fires now, and it works really well. So I'm real glad we did it. But everything that we need, we will put into that database. Your photos will come back to you. Your documents will be scanned. Nothing, we're not gonna lose any paper. But we've got like a cool system. If your house burned down, nobody can remember what was in it. So we developed this systems of prompts where we in effect go in each room. And I'm going to just use the ridiculous example of a griddle. Did you know that there are 22 different kinds of griddles presently for sale? I didn't. But we'll send you prompts about what kind of griddle did you have. You go, I don't know. And then you'll see the picture. That one. And then we in effect go to the equivalent of eBay. We get insurance prices to tell us how much that costs to replace. And it's widget by widget. There's hundreds of them in your dining room, in your living room, in your bedrooms and the like. Big Brother practices law through Google Earth. As soon as you sign up with us, we take a Google image because Google replaces its image every 6 months. And we need the before and the after. And here's an example. This is one in Santa Rosa, 3709 Hennessy. That's what it looked like right after the fire. By the way, this house looks great now because it's been rebuilt with settlement dollars. That's why this counts. But this was Google Earth before. So John was able to take his little laser and say that's 66 feet of shrubs, and shrubs cost $23.22 cents per foot or whatever it is, And so we just go widget by widget. And I use the ridiculous example of a shrub line to show you how important this methodology is. And then he puts it into an Excel, and it's literally, I never thought about any of this stuff. But the concrete, the curb installation, the asphalt, the sidewalk, the retaining wall, the landscape bed, all of that has cost by square foot, and he puts it all into an Excel, inside and out, and then builds it up. And what's important here is this work is the difference between if your house burned down, the cost to replace is more than what your insurance company is going to pay you if you had insurance. The bad news is, I'm sorry to tell you, you're all chronically underinsured. You didn't know it. When I started doing this, I didn't even know my business didn't cover business loss. We only buy the insurance because our mortgage company makes us do it, right? We don't read it. It's got all sorts of little trips in there, caps on contents. You may have $600,000 worth of contents in your house. They, by contract, only have to pay $200. We'll go get the other $400 from the utility. So that's, this is kind of what we're doing here, okay? So John's job is part of this economic analysis that we'll develop to provide a framework for monetary recovery. We'll calculate the individual losses to your infrastructure and your structures, to your soil and the range, to your livestock, future damages, cost to feed, and the like if you have anything left to feed. All that goes into the database. We've got people that have been doing this for months and months and years, and we've got it pretty much lined up. Yeah. He's telling me that we have to be out of here by a certain time because I guess we're in Borger at 6 o'clock. So, but we're doing okay. He always does that to me, accuses me of going long. But I do go long, I apologize. All right. What I will tell you the last thing about John, he's probably going to vote here. He'll be here that long. As long as you got the need, he will continue working and we'll put the resources at it. So that's what we're going to do. In terms of who we are, I don't need a big, long deal about this, but I do like the idea. Every fire I do, I get called by a lawyer like Joe or somebody local that says, we want your help. I do a deal with them, and you get 3 for the price of 1, okay? I've got a lot of experience on this. We've handled a lot of cases. I'm not going to sit here and give you all the details of it, but when you negotiate the $13.5 billion deal in PG&E, you get called in every one of these. And so we've had a lot of successes, recent settlements, over and over and over again. We know what we're doing. It's not any fun, guys. It's just not, okay? But we've got the resources, we've got the commitment to excellence. We know how to do it, how to put it together if you want to do it. We've got good experts, we've got staff available who are ready to help you, and we're not guessing. So each of you got a folder, and let me just kind of take you through what's in there real quick. And then I'm going to shut up and answer any questions until they give me the hook at 4 to go to Borger. Number 1, do not send anything to Mikal Watts, okay? Send it to Joe Lovell and to Scott Sherwood. But we've sent you some stuff. We've got Nita's pictures in here on the left side that show you if your Smokehouse Creek, what happened. I want you to know what happened. That's important to me because I don't want anybody doing a lawsuit that they don't want to be into. If you don't think this is righteous, don't do it. Okay, it's not going to hurt my feelings. I want to help people who want the help, and we'll do a good job. Now, also on the left side is something called a contract of employment and a consent to referral or fee sharing. Let me just take you through that real quick. There are ethical rules that lawyers in the state of Texas have to follow. We're not allowed to do work on litigation for people that haven't hired us. And the idea is that you don't have people poaching each other's clients. So we need one of these if you want us involved. You're not going to get any high pressure from me, okay? I try to write simple contracts. These lawyers, I can't stand lawyers that try to pretend they're smarter than everybody else. Number 1, we're not. Number 2, they start writing a bunch of Latin to try to make you think we're big time. It's bull. Well, never mind. It's nonsense. There's 7 paragraphs. I just want to take you through them real quick. Paragraph 1 is the firm's authority. If you want to hire us, you hire us to bring the claim, file lawsuits, do the things that we do. Paragraph 2 is client cooperation. As John showed you, I can't prove up your damages if you won't call me back. It's work. It's not a free lunch. If you want everything that you lost, you have to help us know what you lost, and then we'll get it priced out. We work off of what's called a contingency fee. We only get paid if we're successful. The fee is 1/3 of what we recover. There are 3 law firms involved that split it, so it doesn't cost you any more to have 3 firms instead of 1. The rules say we have to tell you how we're splitting it. You'll see it's 50% to my firm, 25 to each of these guys. It's not because I'm a better lawyer, it's because I'm the bank. Actually, I borrow the money from a bank, but you get the point. I pay for everything, okay? But these are great lawyers. They don't need me other than the fact that I happen to have done this a bunch, okay? We keep track of all the expenses, which have to be repaid. And let me talk to you about that for a second. There are general expenses, things like fire cause and origin, Mike Schultz, which should be pretty low because we've already proven the cause of this fire, right? We've done some work, spent some money. Schultz will have, we got to have somebody that'll testify to it, but they've already confessed, okay? We'll have fire spread, but most of the expenses here are going to be particular to your case. What John's doing on your property, what we need in terms of an ag expert for you, you know, these kinds of things. So we'll divide it up among all the different people. You'll see where the money is spent to the penny, okay? But what I would tell you is this, what I've learned doing this, I represent a lot of people at once because of the economies of scale. It helps my clients. Let me give you an example. Let's say this was a big time contested fire cause and origin deal. And some of these fires are contested. And Mike Schultz comes down here and interviews everybody in the 3-county area and convinces a jury that the utility did it. But he spent $1 million to do it. If you were my only client and you got to pay 1/3 of the fees and then $1 million, it swamps the boat. Okay, and I know this to be true because in what's called the Tubbs fire in 2017, PG&E was denying it was them. It was a private line, it wasn't us. And Schultz interviewed everybody within a mile of that fire, was there for 6 months, billed me over $1 million, which sounds outrageous, except I had 2,000 clients who each got access to the world's best fire cause and origin expert for $500 a piece. So, economies of scale count. And I don't want to be two-faced. Of course, the more clients I have, the more I make. But I'm telling you from your perspective, talk to your neighbors, tell them you came here. If you think we're not completely full of it, have them come again. I'm going to blow another Sunday. Not blowing a Sunday. My wife says I'm putting our marriage at risk. I'm kidding, but she knows why I do this. She loves that I'm doing this, helping people. But we're coming back Sunday at 2. On the 17th, I'll be back here again on the 24th, I think. And that's after an all-night flight back from Maui on the 22nd, 23rd. The reason for that is I want the word of mouth to get out so that everybody that was affected has an opportunity to hear this very long speech and decide whether they want to be involved. The sooner everybody's involved, the better off you all are because your costs go way down, okay? It just does. If you want to do it, you can do it. If you don't, that's fine. The expenses are advanced by the firm. It's actually a bank that I use that charges me. Keep track of it. It's reimbursed, but we'll keep the damages down, okay? I want to be honest with you about something. I flew in here in a private plane. I don't charge that. I charge Southwest Airlines for travel costs, okay? So if you hear somebody, oh, he's going to waste your money, it's not me, I eat that. But it's the only way I can get all around and do what I do, okay? Multiple clients is the most important thing in here for me. The ethical rules say it's okay for me to represent you and you and you and you all at the same time. But I have to tell you I'm doing it, and you have to consent to that. By signing this, you're consenting to me representing multiple people at once because the caveat is you get those economies of scale, okay? I'm telling you we already represent multiple people, so if you choose to go with us, you're together with other people from the Smokehouse Creek fire and some of these other fires and the like. And if we do this right, there will be hundreds of you, perhaps thousands, all rowing together, okay? Law and venue. This is important to me. I get really pissed off about what a lot of lawyers do. I hate when lawyers from New York and California come in here and say, hey, if you get mad at me, you got to arbitrate, and you got to do it in California or New York. Okay, if you get pissed off at me, sue me. I think Joe's got it in Potter County. We'll do it in your home county. You know, we're not going to screw this up.
okay? I want to do a good job, and I'm willing to put that on the line. It's not convenient for me to come defend myself where everybody is, but I do it because most of our clients are pretty happy with us, okay? I don't get sued a lot. Lastly, number 7 is very important to me. Joe mentioned I'm on the executive board of the Texas Trial Lawyers Association. You may have noticed I get really pissed off about lawyers doing stupid things that makes us look bad. I've been snarky about McDonald's coffee a couple times, right? I can't stand ambulance chasing, okay? I helped write the law that made that a crime in the state of Texas. There is a right way to do that, and that is you put out flyers, advertisements, and the like. You invite people to a public forum where they can listen and make their own volitional decision. What we're doing is the way you should do it. And so I just have people acknowledge that I didn't go knock on your door, and I won't, okay? Go to page 2. In a weird way, page 2 is important, more important than page 1. You have to sign it for it to be a contract, and then my office or Joe's office will countersign it, so that'll be our deal, and we'll send you a copy of it. Notice how it's got your damage address and your mailing address. If you were put out of house and home, like poor Melanie, and she's got a mailing address that right now is different than it was, I need both the damage address and her mailing address. Although I'm not going to send you a lot of mail if you have something called an email address or a cell phone. I need your phone number. Don't give me your home number if you have a cell phone. I will not sell it. I will not share the number with anybody, but I will text you en masse. Not one of you 1,000 times, 1,000 of you once. Okay, it's free. The U.S. mail doesn't lose the mail. It doesn't take 8 days for me to talk to you. I can email you, text you. I need those email addresses and cell phone numbers. And then I need the legal name of everybody at the residence. It's important. I need the date of birth so I can confirm that everybody's for real, and then we'll be good to go. You get that. You don't have to do that today. I'm not a high pressure guy. Okay, take it with you, talk to your families, whatever you want. Okay. Now, on the right side is something that's really important. Most of you, I hope, are ranchers who have a bunch of your grasslands burned up. But if you are the unfortunate souls whose homes were burned down, you're going to want to fill out this contents list. Do your best. It sucks. I'm sorry to use that language, lady. You're going to hate it. You're going to be mad at me. It's emotional. It's the worst. But I'll keep bothering you because there's so much money. You know, we think of our net worth about my house is worth $400,000, and you forget all the birthdays and the anniversaries and the Christmas presents that burned up too, that add up to a lot of money, okay? If you have a business loss, fill out the business loss questionnaire and get it in with us, okay? All of this gets typed into a database. We keep asking you for information until we have what we need to go to New York, to talk to Kevin Orsini, who will ask for a bunch of information. If you do this, we'll file a lawsuit. We'll have you fill out what's called a plaintiff fact sheet, which is basically we have to give the other side the specific information about your damages for them to pay for them, okay? Now, I want to be real honest. This is a little different than most lawsuits that I do. I don't think the general expenses are going to be as high because I don't think we're going to be in a big fight about what caused the Smokehouse Creek fire. I think this is going to be about damages, how much, and the like. I have encouraged Orsini that there is no law that says you should make people who have been burned out of house and home wait 4 years before you pay them like you do out in California all the time. They've already said, call us with your claims. Good for them, okay? My experience when they did that, Orsini did it at my encouragement in the Dixie fire, also a 1 million acre fire in California. And they offered everybody a nickel. And they just see who would bite, okay? I'm not telling you which way to go, but what I am telling you is this: if you want a full loaf, prove the full loaf. John Brown type proof. Not just something on the back of the napkin where they're gonna say, oh, we don't buy that, okay? All right, I've said everything I need to say except for as follows, okay? If you signed in, we will invite you. You don't have to come next week, you've already heard the spiel, but talk to your neighbors, okay? I'm gonna be here next Sunday at 2 o'clock. I think the following Sunday after, I'm doing an all-nighter back from Maui to come here so I can do it a third time.
The reason for next Sunday instead of Saturday is my son is marrying the prettiest thing you've ever met next Saturday night, and I'm not going to miss it. So again, a Sunday. The reason for the third Sunday is I've got a court hearing in Maui on Friday and Saturday to try to set those cases for trial, and I can't get back here till Sunday morning, okay? At that point, I've got to take the next week off. In large part, it's my daughter Taylor's 30th birthday, and we're having a big time eclipse party at my ranch. Okay, so you'll probably see me again that following weekend, the 14th, and then we'll get going again. But I got to take that week off. It's been on the books forever. Okay, what questions do you have that I can answer between now and when I get the hook at 4 o'clock? Yes, sir, in the green.
You didn't say anything about wildlife or the property?
Yeah, no, you mean like any of your animals,
No, wildlife.
plants?
Deer, quail.
Oh, deer, quail. Okay, good. Okay, so all of that has the same value. Let me tell you what I mean. I raise exotics on my ranch. It's a deer ranch. It's not. We don't run cattle. So you know, all that has a value. And hopefully you have good books about all that. If you're going to try to sell it, you've got pretty good books about what you had and what you didn't. God help the utility if you were raising certain kinds of boingo or something like that. I mean, I know how expensive this is. So it's the same kind of principle, right? We got to add it all up. We got to go get an exotics expert or a white-tailed deer expert or this kind of expert or that kind of expert to say what they're worth. But the good thing is I've been to enough of these auctions. They've all got a value. Not much different than cattle, other than they fluctuate a lot more on demand as opposed to just something that's a lot closer. Yes, sir.
Without getting too legalistic, how would you assign a value to personal possessions and mementos like the grandmother's stuff?
Yeah, I think that has incredible value when you talk to jurors. The one thing I've learned doing this, I think 19,000 times now, is some of the family mementos they're just devastating. When you have a family Bible that's been in the family for 16 generations and it's not here, the good Lord blessed me with 2 daughters and a son, and I'm pretty happy my son's getting married and passing along my name. Hope I didn't screw it up too much. Those family things are good. So that's got value. It does. Certain states allow for the recovery of emotional damages for that. Texas is a little more restrictive, but we still get it. And so we need to figure all that stuff out. I mean, I know the whole world's digital now, but most of us grew up with photo albums. It's the only picture we've got of our grandparents or a lot of our parents and the like, and it's gone. It's devastating. So we put in all that on the contents list big time. Okay? Yes, sir.
I know there's a lot of people here that are probably going through content lists for their insurance.
Yeah.
If we have that, do we have to redo that?
Okay, so I hope everybody heard that. If I'm already doing a contents list for the insurance, do I have to do it again for you? Give me what you sent to the insurance company, okay? But I've got to warn you, I'm going to bug you anyway. And here's what experience has taught me. Most of your policies have an artificial monetary cap on contents. And so people tend to do the list until they get to that cap and then they stop. What Excel owes you is not capped. So if I look at your contents list and you were like, kicking some major butt in the kitchen and then you never even got to the bedroom because you didn't need it, I'm going to make you do the bedroom. Okay? And then the other thing is we have something we've developed called Contents College, which is in effect all those prompts. I find that a lot of people's insurance lists are kind of half-baked. They do a good job in the stress of trying to get paid, but they forget a bunch of stuff. If they had this kind of prompt, we would have more. But send me what you got. I don't want you to have to redo it. Yeah, Joe in the back.
Michael, you might touch on real quick for the people who are insured.
Yeah, okay.
What role we do and do not play with
Yeah.
regard to insurance.
Okay. I don't like getting into politics and what I do, but let's just put it this way. The state legislature, in its infinite wisdom, has decided that insurance companies in this state can do no wrong. And it's real hard to sue them for screwing you around. My advice is, in California, it's easy peasy, okay? We don't do insurance claims per se, but the two are kind of lined up. They're helpful to each other, right? The benefit that I've got is that even if you get tooled around by your insurance company, that doesn't limit your damages over here. So I'm not an insurance specialist. Joe, are you doing insurance claims?
No, sir.
Okay. There are people in Amarillo that we can recommend you to if you get in a fight with your insurance company. They're still worth fighting if they're going to just absolutely mess you around. I'll tell you the good news. I was around during the Hurricane Ike claims where the insurance companies were just, denying claims just for the sport of it. They got sued so often, so hard, so fast that even though they've run to the legislature and gotten a lot of the damages fixed where they don't owe a bunch, their processes are a lot more fair. They're a lot better. So my advice is, regardless of whether you're in an easy sue the insurance company state like California or a hard one like Texas, be the squeaky wheel. You will get the most grease. And don't just call, email. The only way that a lot of those claims adjusters do the right thing is when their file is peppered with notice and requests and everything like that. If you get into a he said, she said about what you said on a phone call last Thursday, juries are going to believe the insurance company. If you said, to confirm our phone call of 5 minutes ago, and you send an email, that's a lot better, okay? Yes, sir.
Just general information for everybody. When you're filling out your personal property stuff, trying to come up with the right number, they're gonna depreciate.
Yeah.
Put it all down, get way above your limit, because they will depreciate it all.
Joe.
Yeah, and just a point of clarification for everyone, since we are not trying to take on a battle with your insurance company, we are not taking any fee out of any proceeds you get from your insurance policy. Okay? So that is in the agreement. Just want you to know that.
Yeah, and that's the right thing, right? You paid premiums for that coverage. What are you paying me for? You're going to get it yourself, right? We'll get you what you don't get from them, and we'll do the overage. Let me tell you one other thing, and then I'll answer your question. Although it's an honor to meet all of you in person, it costs money to rent this theater. It costs money for me to fly up here. And that's fine. That's part of what we call our marketing expense that we're not going to bill to you or anything like that. That's just part of what we do. But I have an ethical obligation under the disciplinary rules to keep you updated. I love to do it in person, but it's expensive. I didn't know what Zoom was when COVID started. Never heard of it. Okay? We've got technologies now where we can update you so efficiently. So I do things like Zoom meetings. If I've got 1,000 clients, 82 of them show up, but I video it and I transcribe it and I send it to 1,000 people. And I've just met my obligation to update all 1,000 of you. So there are efficient ways. We'll text, we'll email, and the like. We'll send you updates. Every once in a while when I'm in a good mood, if Joe and I go have a hearing in Potter County or Roberts County and the judge puts it to the bad guys, we'll shoot a video right and say, hey, we just had a hearing, we kicked their butt on blah, 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 and then I'll send it to my people and they'll text it out to 900 people. Just an update, okay? When we're in town, we'll let you know, and a lot of times we have meetings like this. Who else? Yes, sir.
So if we lost our home, are we just turn in personal property only?
No. So I need the tax records. I need the square footage. I'm glad you brought this up. Let me pull this out real quick. You have one of these? Did it run out the house with you? I talked to you about your photographs of the fire, but this gentleman's question just reminded me of something else, okay? We take pictures of ourselves incessantly since we went to a digital society and stopped having to pay Kodak by the print, okay? I like photographs of Christmas, New Year's, birthday parties, and the like. You do it for the smiling people. I do it to see the art on the back and the kind of the couch and the this and the that. I can reconstruct from your pictures what was in that house, okay? If you're outside and the kid's playing on the trampoline, you take a picture of the kid and the house is in the background, John Brown can say, okay, that hedge is that long, that tree is that tall, this grass has got this much surface area and the like. So yes, I want the cost to replace the house. I want the fair market value of the house, not the taxable fair market. Okay, but we'll get real estate experts that says the average home in this area sold for $555 a square foot, before the fire, and now they're selling for $300. We'll do all of that, okay? But pictures are everything.
when you're going through your contents and you're doing your deal for the insurance company, go through your pictures. It will remind you what's in that house. Who had your hand? Yes, sir, in the back. I promise to get to you next.
You got on your photos of the property, the structures 2 years pre-fire. A lot of us got barns that we didn't have no pictures of. We
Yeah.
have pictures of them now, but we didn't have them 2 years or.
No. If you got anything before the fire, what we're saying is you know how in your iPhone you've got a date.
If we don't have any pictures for 2 years ago and stuff.
I don't care that it's not. If you got one for 2 days before the fire, I want it.
What if I don't have one 2 days?
Yeah, no, I got you. So my point is do the best you can, okay? And then there are other ways to prove that that barn was there, okay? If you had a barn raising, if you had a neighbor that comes over and has a cold beer with you on Sunday afternoons, he can testify to it. But juries tend to believe people with documentary proof on top of what you're saying. So try to get both is my only point.
Another thing, I've already had some people ask me about, but we've already cleaned most of our place up.
Good.
All these other places that are needing cleaned up, I know everybody's got their photo documentation. The ones that are waiting to clean up, can they go ahead and proceed with that?
Yeah.
What is best?
Okay, so I'm really glad you asked that question. I have a fundamental rule. Do not let your lawsuit get in the way of your life. I hate when lawyers say, oh, don't touch it. I want it to look crappy for 6 years so that our damages are more. No, come on, guys. Live your life. The faster you can get it cleaned up, the faster you can get things back where you want it. Just photograph before you clean it up, okay? But do it tomorrow as far as I'm concerned, okay? Yes, sir. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
Okay. I was just saying, how important is it to put together maybe a narrative of yourself, what your family, whatever's gone through?
Yeah.
That affects.
So I think I asked for it in the packet, but I do like a narrative. I like you to type it up like right around now, page long. Doesn't need to be War and Peace or anything like that, but just generally what you went through. Some people, it'll be less so here, but when I get these towns like the town of Paradise that was on the side of a mountain, there's only one way down, and 3/4 of the 84 people died in their car. Just because you lived didn't mean you didn't have a harrowing experience like that. If you have anything like that, I need to know about it. But anything that touches you, tell me about. And then the second thing I want to tell you is this. And I come from South Texas where there are a lot of Hispanics. And we have a phrase called machismo. And you know what that is. It's dudes are macho, we're tough. We don't bitch, we don't complain. Excuse me, ladies. Now is not the time to exhibit how tough you are. I don't want you making up damages, but if you were scared for your life because you were running from a 50-foot wall of fire, God did not design you to experience that, and you probably have some form of post-traumatic stress disorder. Okay? If you have that, the thing I recommend is again, get together as a community of survivors. I don't like to call people fire victims. I like to call you fire survivors. People you can talk to about what you've gone through. You work your way out of that psychological condition known as PTSD. It doesn't have to be a priest. It doesn't have to be a psychiatrist that you charge $300 an hour, but work on it because it will eat you up if you don't work on it. Yes, sir.
You may have answered this already and I missed it, but if we were to join, we win, are we going to be required to pay back the insurance settlement?
No. Okay, so let me tell you what generally happens on insurance, and I'm glad you brought that up. So you pay a premium. They're supposed to pay for your damages or whatever's called for in the contract, but to keep your premium down, you assign them a subrogation right. And what that is you give the insurance company the right to try to collect the damages they paid you back from a third party. It's called subrogation. There are lawyers, wildfire lawyers, that do nothing but insurance subrogation claims. We call them, wait for it, the subro lawyers. They are our friends. Anytime one of these fires happens, and yours is one of them, Joe calls me, I think the day after it started. I called a subro lawyer from Southern California that I'm friends with named Craig Simon, who generally brings the claims for all the insurance companies that have paid all of you all to try to get their money back.
okay? We work hand in glove with those insurance subrogation lawyers. They had experts out here before I did. And that doesn't happen very often, but we share information with each other. But the good part is they'll settle their case independently of our cases. You won't owe them, they don't owe us, it's separate, okay?
The only other thing I was going to say in your comment, Dee, is if you do write down a narrative statement or keep a diary or something like that of things that go on, you got to remember right up at the top of that piece of paper, for my attorney. Because as long as that is a communication with your attorney, it is a privileged communication, okay? And then your attorney, whoever that ends up being, can get with you and decide, do we release that, et cetera, so forth. So just a little.
But the fear of disclosure should not prevent you from doing it. I'm a big believer in letter writing like we used to. If you write it down, okay, your memory about what happened that day is far better today than it will be 2 years from now. Okay? So journal. Okay? Write for your attorney. I don't care about that. I mean, I do because Joe just said it. Write for my attorney, but chronicle it. It will help your case if you write it down now as opposed to when some court says you have to a year from now. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
Wait, it's Looney Tunes time. Do you remember watching Looney Tunes up here where they put the shepherd's crook out around the neck and drag him off the stage?
I'm going to answer this lady in the green first. She was so nice and she had her hand up. He said I had till 4, so heck with you, Joe. No.
Well, you're kind of
I'm kidding.
at this.
Go ahead.
When Excel apologized and took responsibility, they have put out a link where you can file claims.
Yes.
Is this a one or the other?
Yes.
Either file a claim with them or
Well,
file this lawsuit?
Here's the deal, and this is against my financial interest, but if you want to file a claim and see if they treat you right, have at it. I know it's going to happen because I've seen it before in California. Just do all the good things that you need to do to get started, okay? What I don't want to do is I don't want to pay John Brown a bunch of money to analyze your property, have it sent to Excel, and you say, oh, I'll take an Excel settlement. Because that's not really fair to my bankers or to John Brown, right? I'm not telling you don't go look at that, but in Dixie, Million Acre Fire, they thought it was real cute, and less than 6% of the people took the money because it was just such a dribble. You know, now, different company, it could be great. I'm not telling you don't do it, just don't wait long. Okay, because the only consequence is John's going to do things in order of people that sign up with us, and if 500 people do, they're going to go before somebody that waits. That's it, but I'm not telling you don't do it. Okay?
2 comments on that, okay, just in addition. One is, if you're going to do that, you need to be extraordinarily careful of any document they ask you to sign, okay? That's 1. 2 is just think about if you end up changing your mind and later think you can get better damages, etc., going with a lawsuit. Anything you will have said before can and will be used against you in a court of law, okay? So just think very carefully about what you're doing and whether or not you're limiting yourself for later. And that's my only caution.
Yes, ma'am.
So like on the Excel paperwork in the bottom of it, it says in the fine print that they can take your property. Is that won't happen with you guys, right?
Take your property, what do you mean?
Yeah, in the fine print, they can take possession of your property
Whatever
if
they
they pay you the damages.
Okay, that's not good. Don't agree to that.
Yeah, Michael, what it says on there is that if they pay you for it, if they want it, they get it.
Yeah, look, don't sell your property to a utility company, okay? I didn't, and I apologize I hadn't read that yet. Don't do that. I don't care who you are, don't do that. Joe, I'll get some credit here. In the McBride fire, I think it was, it may have been Hermit's Peak, the state AG, maybe it was Hermit's Peak because it was the federal government, put out some nonsense like that, and he threw a fit and just publicly shamed them into taking it out. So the best way to get that language taken out is, and again, I don't know who does social media and who doesn't and like that, but you guys need to collectively get to know each other. It's a good check on lawyers like me. If I'm full of it, the fastest way to figure it out is talk to each other. Same thing, if one of you has an experience, and this is where I'm really glad you said that, where somebody went, we get your property. I mean, please don't do that. I rescind what I said to the young lady in the back, okay? Nobody has a right to buy your property, okay? But here's what I want you to watch out for. And this is why I'm glad she asked the question. Anytime there's a tragedy, contractors come in. Get references before you give somebody money to rebuild anything. Try to do people local who've lived here a long time. The guy that comes in from another state to rebuild your fence or your roof, he can screw you over and leave. Somebody's lived in Amarillo their whole life, has to go back to Amarillo, and you know where they are, okay? So talk to each other about who's reputable and who's not, and if one of you gets burned, don't be so proud that you don't admit it, because there's probably 15 of you right behind them going to get burned by the same person, okay? I watch this a lot in Santa Rosa. Find good contractors, reward good conduct, penalize bad conduct, and communicate bad conduct. Yes, ma'am.
Whenever that we decide, like, I'm gonna take this back to my dad for him to.
Of course, yeah, yeah.
They decide to go with y'all, what do they need to do?
Okay, so we need to sign that contract. Joe, do they have an address that is in the folder where to send it, or what? How do they get the contract back to you?
Yeah, they can just send that, it's in there, somewhere. Front cover.
Front cover of the folder. Oh, okay, good. Okay, I'm sorry. So as soon as Joe gets that, he in effect scans it. We'll countersign it, send it back to you. You'll be client. Then you'll go on John's list, and one after the other, we start the process. And you know, it doesn't feel as in bad taste here because we don't have 84 people who haven't had funerals yet. And if you're one of the folks, it's the 3 people that died, I'm so sorry. I represent one of them already. But the rest of you, I think, are ranchers who, you know, let's get started. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
So if we go with you and you win, then what happens, how do you decide what each one of us gets?
Okay, good question. I have a fiduciary obligation to each of you independent of the other. There's multiple ways this happens. Sometimes they get negotiated one by one by one by one by one. Some companies like to do that. Other companies like to throw a big pot at the end of the table. Okay, I settled a case in December with Pacificor in Oregon. It was $550 million. They said, you split it up. I'm not allowed to split it up. So we have to go get a third-party special master, like a former judge, who can decide. Everybody makes applications and the like, okay? But you're the boss. I'm the hired help, okay? Only you can decide to settle your case. I can't do it for you and won't, because I can and should be sued if I do that, okay? You say yes. So
you're doing it
individually. And I'm not saying that there couldn't be a scenario where they offer a certain amount of money. I said, guys, that's a lot. Like the thing in Oregon was so much money that I knew I could get everybody to say yes. But we got the mediator, who was a former judge, to say, this guy's getting offered that, this guy's getting offered that, and then they formally offered it individually, and everybody said yes.